Welcome everybody. I have a lot of downloads for you guys from this past weekend. It's 5:30 on the clock, which is the 5 of the Hierophant, or in alchemy, the Master of the Hidden House, and the 30 of the House of the Union. So lots of stuff came in this weekend just from other information I've already pulled. So I was gathering my notes to present this to you. There's a lot about the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets come in here, as well as the supernova events, that energy, but there's a lot more in here. So I would stay tuned because there are some timelines that come up here as well. And again, it's not a short message because there's a lot of details here. So if you could just bear with me, I think it'll be worth your while. So where are we? Today is the 27th of June. I actually went to the beach again yesterday, which was great for just detoxing a little bit. But again, I went into the ocean and literally dipped my head into the water 3 times, and I was feeling that baptism energy coming up. And all of these messages came from the weekend, so Friday through Sunday. So the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So it started out with the 5 moons energy that were coming up in some messages I was getting. And 5 moons would end up right at my son's birthday, which is right around October 28th to the 29th. Light E is union site, and remember the capital E is 1 equal and congruent to, and also the Merlin. The energy of the King of Swords and Page of Wands had come up at that time regarding mastering of thoughts and inspired by flame. And again, some of this early information here is coming from the read that I'd done for the twin flames, which I'll present to you separately than this video. So I have that as well as a message of the day that I'll still present to you, but some of this information is from that read. So the private sight was coming up, the Master of the Hidden House. The twin flames, or the Di-Gamma chakra system, discerning, and the 6 and 7 coming up of the Lovers and the Chariot, but 67 is also the Knight of Pentacles, who kept coming up this weekend as well, very significant, which is the Humble Loyal Servant. Friends, which come up as equal to the Whales, the Lovers and the Chariot, saw fish without bat, so didn't beckon, reflecting sight of change. Extremely small mass that's without charge or protection, no need to ask when salt meets fresh, as in the Mary Magdalene baptism of when salt meets the fresh waters, which I didn't get that before regarding the baptism. To blow, to breathe out, to break wind is the suspension bridge of salt and fresh. And sulfur is going to be coming up here soon too, so just so you know how they're all coming together. Sulfur and the gamma ray came up as what does it mean for them together, as the messages I was getting, which will come up again in this message. And so first the 4 knights I noticed in that read were all down, 4 knights down. So the first 4 seals were down or finished. And it came up as, of course, the white horse, which is white, the W of 2 U's, and HITE, which means to spread out, which came up, that phrase literally came up multiple times in these messages. And again, the spreading out is that phased array. 4 knights all down, where the white is 2 U's to spread out. The red is with the sword, which is the S word, Sophia's word, and the black is this with the scales, the Sophia's scales, which represents the baptism, the path. So the word and the baptism. It also means immersion, and again, this reference to baptism here, or being intact, being whole, as opposed to not in pieces. Entirely, safely, judge or mare also comes up here. Autumn, year, hot and glow, inflamed, sought after. To matter, which is also icosahedron. Icosa means to matter, but also referencing that you are matter, which is to matter and be important. So hydrogen sulfide and methyl mercaptan, lighting the flame. So again, passing wind or breaking wind in regards to sulfur. Why do we light a flame? All right, so certain foods produce sulfur, which produces that bad smell. But when you light the flame, it doesn't take away the smell. It covers it up with a more pleasant smell. So sulfur dioxide, which then covers the other smell in a more pleasant way, but doesn't actually get rid of it. On 6/23/23, being announced, completed taxi tests for 5 newly built. Okay, so this is what came up from the 4 Nights Down. So the 4 Nights Down was bringing up Red Hawk Down and Black Hawk Down regarding the red horse and the black horse. What came up was these headers when I looked online. 6/23/23, which was the day I did this message. Boeing announced completed taxi tests for 5, which just came up, the number 5, newly built T-7A Red Hawk trainer jets. And this was in Lambert Field, St. Louis, Missouri. And they were now cleared for their second phase. The process is well behind schedule, though, according to the article, and that was coming up from popularmechanics.com. It's a supersonic jet here, and apparently they're over budget by, over $1.1 billion regarding their contract with the government in losses trying to correct problems. They are to transfer to Edwards Air Force Base in Cali, so California comes up here, but also the word C-A-L-I, after the summer, because they're going to do the second phase testing, I guess, this summer in Missouri. So from the LAtimes.com, then came up this next section regarding me looking this stuff up. There was an article about the eagles, literally the birds, and this was from May 20th, 23, kidnapping a baby hawk twins. Get this, all right? So an eagle had kidnapped twin red-tailed hawks. It kills one and then raises the other as its own. So that baby hawk now lives with her. So it was the mother who kidnapped the baby hawk, her mate, and their new sibling Lola, which is an eagle. And this is in the Bay Area forest. So eagles and hawks are considered mortal enemies. So they're asking, why was it that this eagle took a hawk into their nest? So they believe that the eagle thought that they were food, because hawks, especially when they're young, lay really flat when they think enemies are around, so they look like they're dead. So the eagle probably thought they were dead, and that is why they stole them from the nest, and probably why they were thought to be seen killing the other, because they thought they were already dead. The red-tailed hawks lay flat when they see predators and may not have thought they were still alive. But the next day, they saw another baby smaller in the nest, but then they also saw the father and lots of feathers, and the next day that baby was no longer there. So apparently the mother didn't kill it. It was like the mother bringing another adopted baby to the nest, but the father saying, I'm not having it, right? So the first little baby, who was part of a twin set, was raised as their own. And that was because what they think it was caused by was that the mother thought it was, she was bringing home food to the nest. And when she realized it was alive and squawking in the nest, they get confused and think it's one of their own. So they start feeding it and taking care of it as though it's one of their own, because they thought they brought something dead back to the nest. So again, something associated with the red horse and the black horse was the red blood moon, right? The eclipses, the red blood moon and the black sun. This is also in the Bible about when the moon turns blood red, and the black sun, right, in the darkness. And here again, the eagle, white knight, takes down the red hawk and black hawk that's already down by Sophia's word or sword or salt, and then Evelyn Salt came up there as well, meets Sophia's cows from scales. So Sophia's cows, C-A-L-E-S, is scales, or immersions, again that baptism energy, of the eagle on the move. So apparently something else they observed during this nesting thing was that after the eagle poops, they know they're about to be on the move because they poop and then they go. So this energy of the eagle on the move after pooping, inflamed and sought after, but whole at least, or not in pieces, to matter, red salt and black fresh, and afterwards the pale horse, the green one, holding it together with illness after war, virus, starvation, wild animals, and wild Mother Nature, expressing themselves. So the fifth seal comes up. So this all started, those searches, because they were taking me to the fifth seal, having that the 4 nights are down already. And the breaking of wind, or blowing of air, or breathing out, was being associated with folding in upon oneself and getting the air out, pushing it all out. So the fifth seal is about resting a little bit longer in your white robes while the others arrive through death like you had, for example. So in other words, those who are still going through dark night haven't finished yet, so we're waiting till they were done. So because in the sixth seal, with the 4 angels in the 4 corners of the world, because the sixth seal, the world folds in upon itself, with the 4 angels in the 4 corners, where the 5th angel shows up, which is ether, the 5th element, in search of the 144,000 with the seals on their foreheads. The Lamb, their shepherd, to guide them to the springs, the salt water and the fresh water that come together in the Mary Magdalene baptism, which I experienced in the south of France, to wipe away their tears. And the 7th seal of silence. And the 7 angels and 7 trumpets, with the 8th angel arriving, number 8. So again, all of this is being associated with the heartbeat again. The heartbeat, right, is even, and then when you pulse, right, you have the upswing of when you breathe in, and you have that systolic leap and then down to the diastolic. Well, actually, the leap up and then down, reflecting that, and then coming out to that underlying energy, which is the diastolic, the evenness. So from the pits in the dark night of the soul, of the blood pressure, from the pits where they will long to die, and this is what it says in the Bible, but they will not die. So they've been told not to kill them, but really it's just dark night of the soul where they want to die because they feel like they're in separation and it feels awful, right? They're going through dark night of the soul. And as in the case of fire, as sulfur and something stronger to cover it. So again, from the pits of the dark night of the soul, they will long to die, but they will not. As the incense in the Bible and the fire is being referred to as the sulfur and something that is stronger to cover its smell. Twice 10,000 times 10,000 of sulfur is literally referenced in the Bible. And the velans or velans, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, they're calling here, breaking off a piece of oneself. So the velans is like an iceberg with a piece of itself breaking off, which is the same thing as birthing, right? And I brought that up the other day, of when you have so much light in your body that you can't fill up anymore, you're forced to kind of birth forward that light into something else, which can come out as a child or as in some other kind of creation. But you are forced to breathe out that light and make it something else, to break off a piece of oneself. And again, this the perfect association for this is the gremlins, right? You don't get them wet because then they bubble up and they birth all over the place. And breaking wind coming up again with this as well. So the horses with lions' heads, fire, smoke, and again the horses with lion's head references the Sphinx energy, with fire, smoke, and sulfur out of the mouths and tails like serpents, which is the Kundalini, which then comes up as the stallions I always talk about, which are stall lions, but the stallions being that horse. The stall lions or lyrans fed the wrong foods as their Kundalini is awakened. Okay, and being fed isn't just about food, but everything we take into our bodies, which then causes gas, right? So the gate holders is this ninth angel that comes in after the eighth angel. The ninth angel is standing on land and sea, right? The gate holder, keeping the land and sea together, as nations, which is nat connections, nat and ion, is that unforgettable connections that trample the holy city for 42 months or 1260 days, and again, these being the gate holders, for 3.5 years as the prophecy of their death then happens and then is celebrated, but then after 3.5 days, when they breathe again, they come back to life, the two witnesses, or again, this reference to the twins, and the heavens actually open up. So again, now heaven is available because this bridge has been opened for all to come across who choose to do so. So again, the energy of the twins having been separated and being killed in that process. So there's this reference to that. But then, coming together after 3.5 days, they breathe back to life. The two witnesses and the heavens open up, right? That bridge to heaven, where 1/10 the city fell, and there's this reference to 7,000. And again, the heartbeat of lightening up, and then the water falls down, and then back into the evening out again. Okay, the crossing of the Rainbow Bridge. So the trampling of the holy city is the crossing of the Rainbow Bridge. The holy city is the hole and the tunnel, God's rail, the grail, God and rail, for 42 months or 3.5 years. And 42, remember, is the Two of Cups, that one-to-one soulmate energy. So the skies open up. May the rain of blessings fall in the heartbeat of the evening out to the lighting up and the water falling back into that evening out again. And then into the third woe. So we have the 7 seals, but also 3 woes, which adds up to 10, which will be referenced in a minute. But the third woe is the 7th trumpet and the 24 elders that are not 24 in number, but the Omega of enlightenment, but also referenced to as the Pleiades, the ancient ones who sit on thrones, the path of one, God's temple, that heaven is open now, the Ark of the Covenant seen, and heavy hail has its like thunder. It's storming outside right now, and Teddy's been scared for the past couple hours, and we had huge storms yesterday too, so he's been scared a lot over the past couple days. God's temple or heaven's open now, and the Ark of the Covenant seen, with heavy hail, that Hail Mary energy, may the rain of blessings fall. The woman and the dragon, clothed in the sun and the moon underfoot, and crowned with 12 stars. And I was getting that crown of violins, which was actually a reference to a message I'd gotten several years ago that was a reference to my father, because he used to play violin, but that he was present and circling my crown with that 12 violins. So the red dragon comes up here in the Bible as the Hydra with 7 heads and 10 horns, which references the 7 trumpets and the 3 woes, right? The messages that have come out. The diadems or diadems, I don't know how you guys pronounce it, but all crowned, means crown, all crowned with arcs, like you would put a crown on your head. It's got a circle, and then the arches, which reference that covenant, which is the circle, the ring, and the ark is the symbol of the royal sovereignty, the regal power. The sacred covenant was source of beingness. She births a son, a Lyran son, that is taken away and fled because they were given wings of the eagle to a place that God had prepared for her for that 3.5 years of solid foundation, with news of romance, but not through the grapevine, but the rose vines entwined in a serenade. And again, the whispering bench coming up here. The turtle and the whale in union of Sophia and Christ God on the whispering bench of the Mayan cobweb and the children of the corn. So something that came up about hawks in that one article was that there was another message about hawks where there was a hawk rescued, a baby hawk, from heat exhaustion. They had like crashed into a window, and this was a military installation, I think, as well. So that you know, they're telling the story about the rescue team who actually rescued them. But the hawk was sick because if they fly too low in the heat, they will get sick in heat exhaustion, which is why they fly so high in the cool air. So that was an important message coming through as well. The temperature that affects the hawks, the red hawk down and the black hawk down. The Mayan cobwebs of the galactic grid, and the Mayan cobwebs actually being the galactic grid was coming up from astrocommandandcrew.net. This is an article back from September 10th, 2010. The cobweb swamp also came up in North Belize. And remember, Belize, B-E-L-I, comes up later in my read, and Z can be interchanged with S. So again, basically the same words. But the cobweb swamp in North Belize, where they found relics of agricultural field, ancient ruins, with human modification, of that burned cobweb paleosol, with radiocarbon assays of sediment and charcoals that suggested Maya dug by at least 600 AC and possibly much earlier to manage the water and the water lands, perhaps too much water, as we're getting lots of downpour right now. The weathered fields buried by Mayan clay, apparently at that time. And they describe it as a series of channels or island features, which is a reference to Atlantis. And this was coming up from researchgate.net. July 1995, the Journal of Field Archaeology. So notice the archaeology has the arc in it. And that was by John S. Jacob. So from eraoflight.com, the Maya New Year came up from July 26, 2021, which then would have gone through to 7/25/22 last year. And it was called the Yellow Electric Seed Oracle. And the astrology that year was Blue Eagle, Yellow Star, White Wizard, and Red Earth. And again, the Mayan cycle of 13 months plus that one extra day on July 25th, which is considered a day out of time. Now, July 4th to 5th is considered the Sirius gateway this year, the royal lions of Elohim. So again, here is another reference to the royal lions being of Elohim. The children of the cornfields showing up, as well as tomatoes and roses unannounced, reflecting the strong foundation of the house. A delivery of music and flowers and vines changing direction and going for it, southeast perhaps, or in a sudden event. And this reference in the cards had come up of the hammer and the hook, which looked like a T and a 7. So T7 came up, and there was another reference to that supersonic jet, the T7. So the grasshopper and the locust were referenced here as birthing on the way, with Atlas being the shepherd and the king, with childhood of great responsibility. Hercules has been referenced to Athena through my own downloads, and Bridget, of course, has come up this past week as well as being the bridge, Bridget and the bridge. And the Parthenon here as well, referencing Elohim, and Atlas also means island, and that's what Atlantis is, islands, a series of islands. The embodiment of the celestial axis around which the heavens revolve. Again, that's axis, or Atlas rather. And then Atlas is also referenced to of Hercule, which is Heracles and Hercules. So there is like substantiated reference of their connection. Emotional water. So again, Atlas is referenced as hydrocarbon, which is hydro, of course, is water, and then we're carbon-based, going into crystalline-based. But Atlas is that hydrocarbon that has an aroma by removing the hydrogen atom, or atom, the 144. The person without atom that takes on an aroma. And Andromeda came up with that as well, with the aroma, Andromeda. The Appalachian Mountains, remember that when the lands split, the Appalachian Mountains in the United States also were left in Africa as the flat-topped mountains, which comes up as the that African cap, or the roofie. The Appalachian Indians are from Tallahassee, Florida. It's also Abalchi, the other side of the river, and Appawasi, or Chi, dwelling on one side. To call or appeal that is new or recent, straight away, humble grace, or to grow pale in a jostle. So then again, there's a reference of the pale horse, or the green horse at the end. The Ark of Covenant is the inheritance or legacy. And again, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The Ark of the Covenant is the inheritance, the legacy. The leap of 2 dots, the ark, the sacred ark that creates the field, a spiritual contraction to fold in upon oneself. And then at 224 in the original message is referencing 2 24s, or 2 omegas, or 2 omegas, or megas rather, amigos. So this is reference to 2 friends, like 2 amigos, as 2 omegas. But 2 omegas is Messier 83, the 2 horseshoes that hold hands, which I've shown you before. The 2 horseshoes that are linked in Hydra, M83, it's like they're shaking hands. And are they aspecting now? And again, the main star in Hydra is Alfred, which is orange. 2 Hydra plus enchantment came up online as well. And then Bridget as the patron saint of the serpent in Scotland. So there's this reference to Bridget associated with Hydra. And of course, Hydra's constellation is represented as the male version of Hydra, but smaller. And also Hydra is associated with the dragon Tiamat. And Bridget is associated with Ireland's national symbols of the shamrock, the Celtic harp, and again referencing Lyran energies, and Bridget's cross in Ireland, which is made of straw. The goddess of the sacred flame of Kildare and the Druids, also left and north, and considered the country folk. There's also, what came up with Hydra was a word, well, two other names, EN-TE-NA-MAS-MUR or -LUV, which is interesting because that can reference love and the sea. And that'll come up on the next page, I believe. That reference, so EN for me is JC, TE is the moral man. And then what did I reference as? Not applicable mass of, again, emotions or the sea, but it comes up in a different way, which we'll get to in my notes. Okay. So page 4 now we're on. And by the way, my notes came out to 7 pages, and 7 comes up as very significant. So 11, 11, 11 came up because that is the 3 sets of stars in the Bear constellation, or which is also considered the wagon, or the which is like a chariot kind of energy. But the 3 bear paws are 11, 11, 11 because there's 2 stars together in each bear paw that you see in that constellation. They're called the leaps of gazelle. It's like the gazelle being chased by the lion. But it's interesting too because the bear is about to pounce on the lynx, which is the tiger. And Hydra, the head of Hydra is just east of Sirius and Orion as we're coming up to the Sirius alignment. And again, the bear is Ursa Major. And the 3 biggest constellations are Ursa Major, Virgo, and Hydra that are all clustered right there. Virgo's star is Spica, which is in the news recently about 2026, because the light from the Declaration of Independence, and this considered America's star, is supposed to be showing up in 2026 or around there. The legal seagull came up as well, the legal eagles, where it's the L eagle and the S eagle. The L and S being the Elohim and the seraphim and the eagles here. The owl constellation also came up, which owl is OWL, the human, 2 U's, and then Elohim, so 2 human Elohim. And the phoenix has also been coming up over and over again with love, and the lion star, again referencing the Lyran system, but also Sirius, of course. So there's also this energy of the moon being surrounded by 2 stars, and on that day, the moon was in between Leo and Hydra, and Leo's right next to Virgo, and then that was leading to the card that you see in front of you, with the 2 stars coming together as one, that glowing golden heart, or the golden apple. The energy of the Elohim, and again, we're coming up with all of the things associated with each one. The Elohim were coming up as beings, whereas the seraphim were coming up as the thrones. The seraphim references the burning one, and Elohim also comes up as the Lyran and the lion star. The phoenix actually comes up as the seraphim, though, because it's the phoenix before they rise, just the moment before rising. The seraphim is the burning one that burns into oneness. The seraphim represents the heartbeat and the evening out, or the diastolic pressure, where the Elohim represent the spikes in the blood pressure as the lightening up and then the waterfall. Okay, that's the Elohim beings, referencing the seraphim of the thrones, right? So the singularity and then the phased array from the singularity as the Elohim. So what also came up from Elohim is Leo, the pantheon, the temple, which also for me is Athena comes up with the pantheon, which also then references Hercules, because I've gotten them as the same being actually. And again, the Elohim referenced the beat as opposed to seraphim as the heart, right? So the heart and the beat, or the throne and then the congregation of the Elohim. The pantheon also comes up as the Father to the nth degree with eternity, or that spirit emanation from the Godhead, so the phased array from the Godhead, where seraphim is referencing that source energy, that singularity. So it's the conductor and the orchestra. Remember, the Elohim is the ELO hymn, the ELO electric light orchestra, and the seraphim as the conductor, the hydra, the snake, the throne, the evening, the 0 point, the moment before, and again referenced as the burning one, whereas the Elohim are the lion's heart. And then in the different religions, depending on what you're asking, but Christianity, you have the second group and then the third group, right? The second group is the groups of souls, the warriors and the powers that be in the middle. And then the third section, of course, are the angels and archangels, who are 5th density and below, to connect directly with us. Also with the Elohim is the Bene Elohim, and that came up a couple reads ago where I was getting Bene, and Benny and the Jets, and there's that T7 again. So the Bene Elohim are the children of the Elohim, and it can be quoted as the children of Seth or Set. And in Judaism, the Bene Elohim are number 8 listed, and there are 3 hymns in the 10 listed under Judaism. The hymns are the Seraphim, the Elohim, and the Ishim, which is the number 10. The Seraphim is number 1, Elohim is listed 7, and the Ishim is listed number 10. And the Bene Elohim number 8, and the Cherubim is number 9. So very important, of the 1, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I looked up the meanings of Seraphim and Elohim, and literally the Serap is the mirage of water, to absorb is 1, to borrow or copy regarding words, and ELO, like I said, is the orchestra, but also is L. It is Ale, it's life and now, the crop, and August, which is coming up, and the 1,000 reindeer, or the thousands of reindeers, in the chain link, and the trunk of the elephant, which is the trumpet, and the gore, which is the blood that is poured. The high and the link, MYND, which is what goes around comes around, and the locust bean fruit of empty locust fruit pods of debit and credit, tablet and slate, so again the 10 Commandments reference there, and divinity to be strong regarding El and Elohim. Also the 70 sons of Asherah came up, so this is reference to Elena Danan's book with the Asherah, which is similar to the Pleiadians' energy of, it's a little bit different spelling. I think it's A-A-R-A instead of Era, E-R-A. But E also can be I, pronounced as E, and then Ra in Pleiadian is wise, and I in Pleiadian is venerable. So the venerable and wise, the Asherah, the 70 sons of Asherah. And then the Elohim come up as the ELO, oh, I am, in mourning or keening. The music of the spheres of the Elohim, of the sulphur, the lightning and the brimstone of that peak in the blood pressure. The Mona Lisa comes up here as the moan of the L as one, which also the LIS in Mona Lisa comes up as the lithium and sulfur combination, which is what a battery is. So that led me to this article of about batteries, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the birthing twin ones, and again that energy of Mona Lisa and the music of the spheres, of the gamma sulfur together, which by the way sulfur is number 16, and is yellowish green, which is the pale horse. Sulfur is the pale horse. The Li is the lithium, the S is the sulfur, and then the gamma phase sulfur is referencing something that's very rare, energy, and they found it's very hard to find. They find it in oil fields where there's a lot of heat, but they actually accidentally happened upon creating it in a lab. So sulfur comes up broken down to, from its definitions, into the hardy plow, which is Ursa major, the warp beam of weaving the heart or the snakes to drag south by the hair, alone in emotions or water, the pineal tree to carry or tow the line, and the line is the leap from 2 dots, the arc, to an equitable extent anyway, by code or law, to protect as the flock and the shepherd, steal and cover with fur, to steal one's heart away, weaving energy lines which are nadis. So remember we have the 3 biggest constellations. Hydra, this is the snake, Virgo is the virgin, and then the bear or plow, which is Ursa major. So Bridget was also coming up here affiliated with the virgin energy or the bridge. The gamma ray is the key to the code of the boomerang, of the weaving lines or nadis, or energy lines, of the gamma and the sulfur, or the rays of wisdom and love, of Christ Godhead and Sophia, Mother Nature, of, instead of bliss, coming up as gliss, G-L-I-S, the G of the Christ God and the S of Sophia on the end, and in the middle is the lithium or Li of the 2 dots of the arc, and then the lowercase I, which is the chakra system in my coding, and that leap to the chakra system. It's that source emanation and leap to the chakra system of the human, where, by the way, GLIS, G-L-I-S, also means the girl mouse, and it means the grin, again, going back to the Mona Lisa. And the mouse definition also came up for the masculine as the myrrh in sulfur, which is also the mouth, the wall, and the ocean or the sea, referencing the masculine version, whereas the gliss, as opposed to bliss, is referencing the feminine grin or the girl mouse. So at 202, which is referencing to divine feminine or our higher selves, that could be a masculine and a feminine, with space between, and the music of the spheres, and the moan of Mona Lisa, or the moan of El is one. Of August herd of dear ones in thousands, the reindeer, the chain link, and again the rain being the emotions of the dear one, the reindeer, the thousands of reindeers, and the illumination of 1,000. The chain link, the lion's roar, which is also glymer, Glymur, which was a combination of the gliss and the myrrh, the masculine and the feminine, comes up as the roar, the lion's roar. The lion's roar is longing. Their longing is the lightening up and the waterfall of the heartbeat. The Elohim being the ELO of the O, I am. And the keening, the grieving, the mourning, and the elephant's trunk, which is the trumpets, and the lynx or keys. Notice lynx is also the constellation lynx of the tiger. The trumpets and lynx or keys to the 8-8 and the 1,000s or thousands of reindeer, the call of the flock home in the wake-up call to diner time. The gliss of Mona Lisa's grin, the girl mouse to Sulphur's boy mouse, or that girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her, needing the gamma ray to complete him. The gliss, G-Li-S, or the Christ temperature of the hawk that must fly high as to not get burned or dehydrated. Notice Hydra is in hydrated. You must have Hydra in you to be hydrated. Otherwise, you're dehydrated or you get burned. To be, and here's that to be bliss or be G-less. And that's interesting too, because that comes up to be-less or G-less, and G-less can be like jealous energy as well. But again, the energy was coming up as to be bliss or to be gliss. So be-less is Be and then Li-S of the lithium sulfur energy. And then G-less is the Ge of energy and then the Li-S of the lithium and sulfur. So the B-less comes up as the sheep, the billy goat, or perhaps the stupid boyfriend, to steal the abdomen or that energy in the belly, which comes up as the pyramid, the fire in the belly, and again being slow, like the goat climbing the mountain, where the G-less is beautiful and speedy. So again, this is G-E-L-I-S or B-E-L-I-S, which also is very close to Belize, which came up earlier regarding the Mayans. So the sheep of the Belize and the beautiful and speedy of the Geles, so one is very slow and one is very fast, and one may be that reference of slow, right, not as quick thinking or in moving, but in the G-E-L-I-S, it's beautiful and speedy. So the energy of B or G, which remember G is the C and the T, which is the Christ top dog energy. And then the Ellis of E-L-I-S, which is also then referencing Ellis Island, to B or the G Ellis, which Ellis is also L, Elos, and E-S as well. To be Elohims in bliss, or G, to energize the Elohims in gliss with Mona Lisa's smile, that expression of the seraphim evening out of the highs and lows, whereas the B Elohims in bliss is more of an expression of a little bit more extreme, right? So the seraphim is the evening out of the highs and lows, and then we get to the cherubim, the voice of the lamb's snake, dear you, or dear one, be, I am. The share of the cherubim is the desire, the wish, the dear, the valuable, the super, that disappears and vanishes right before your eyes or dies, something that you hold dear. The children, the chilled wren, the reindeer, flock, on the unplowed land between the two fields. Any kid to thread and weave, the horseradish, which comes out as Mr. Ed's ray dish, phased array, the voice of the Lamb's Kundalini on the whispering bench, the bridge to source in GLISS branch with a speedy delivery, or Cupid's arrow. The L's 7 trumpets and 70 suns, calling the 7,000 of reindeer ones home through the 700 Club. 777 equals 21, but 7777 equals 28, which is that twin flame reference or choice of path. The snake or the hydra with the lion and the ram headed towards 717 and then 88 through the 7-4 or July 4th Lion's Gate opening. As the ram gets in, again when the north node changes, the ram gets in at 717, breaking down the walls, which is the masculine mouth, as the solitary one, which is Alphard in Hydra, along with Regulus, which is the lion's heart, and Aries, the god of war, as Aries is in the north node, and the moon was coming up that day between 2 stars. In the Virgin's 8th house, which is Aries, of hidden fears and intimacy, the 7-headed Nagas control of 7 oceans, 7 mountains, 7 days, and 7 nights, but also 7 races and 7 colors, which is 42 months, and then plus 7 keys and voices, which then becomes 49 to get your wish, as you see in front of you on the card. So Nadas are half human and half serpent, but can be seen as other ways, like it can be seen as the human with the serpents on their head, or just a serpent, but it's the half human, half serpent coming up here, and again referenced as the cobra. And the energy of Nagas in the feminine form is the Nagi, N-A-G-I, which means naked, across water, or swim or sail, calm in the calm sea. So this is reference of Nadi also, as opposed to Nagi. Nadi, which is an energy line, also means stone or rock. The reed, the flowing river, the artery, the aorta, and the pulse to search, the Nadi. And the Naga, N-A-G-A, is the serpent, the snake, the water snake basically, and the loincloth, so Tarzan comes up there, and also the reference of the doublet of the snake. So there's that doublet reference of the jackfruit as well, the part or piece, to gnaw, and the now moment, now, the dragon, and to crawl. And the wild duck came up here, and as soon as I saw that, I was getting the reference to the seagull, right? Because the seagull is a seagull, but it's Sophia's eagle. So it's that wild duck energy, right? So a snake doesn't fly, but when it goes crazy and starts spinning around, it does, right? So, and it becomes gullible to this. The male sword comes up as the claw, and the female as the stone or the rock here. That he is the speak in the blood pressure, right? The crawling dragon, or the duck gone wild, and flew as a seagull, or as Sophia's eagle. And she calmly swims or sails naked across the sea or the river as the stone or rock, or the rolling stone of the water snake, the pulse and the bloodstream to his beat. The 7th beat, which is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, which for me is source energy, is the source key, the 7th beat, which T is also Tesla and temperature, time out, 2 for T, and the top dog. The temperature, which is the TE of the moral man, the MP of the military police, the ERA of the emanating out eternally from the top dog of U-R-E, or you who are the Merlin, you are the protection, you are the magician. Cobra and eternity coming up with this, and the light of the moon that illuminates as opposed to the coolingness. The seraphim is the sea or the evening as the land of the Elohim rises. And again, the legal eagles here of the Elohim eagle and the Sophia or the energy of the seraphim eagle. The beach is, all right, so we have this reference of the land and sea, where the beach is the cherubim of the atom, ADM, of the 144 plus thousands of reindeer ones. The thousand sons of illumination, where land meets sea, meets sky, meets the I am. The chains broken at the sea, the whispering bench of the ocean and vision and emotions of love, sight and sound. In the keening of the lion's star, seriously aligned with changing of the nodal guards. And August, with 2 moons, August 1st and August 31st, and the 8-8 peak of 2 as 1, as you see in the card in front of you. The 777 is Valentine's Day, celebrated by Japan, waning the full moon, because the full moon is July 3rd, into the opening of the gates, of Lion Gates, which was referenced by that site from 7-4 to 5, 4 to 5, but 5 is coming up, I guess, which is that expansion and contraction or reflecting in the middle. The 3 keys of 777 into full moon into the 717 and the changing of the guards to the 888, which is 2024 towards the end of the Olympic ceremonies. The 3 keys of 777, where then the middle one is opened at 717 with the stubborn bull to the battering ram, where the bull is very direct, but the ram is a bit of a wild duck. The blessings with a mighty roar, birthing a star. And will it be Aldebaran, Elioth, or Lion's Regulus, or the bear's Euma, as Love Island star gives birth? All right, so that was the news that came up. So remember that. So I was just looking them up to see where we're going to be birthing a star. And again, this references the twin flames coming together, because their collective energies of coming together is a supernova energy, okay? So here, the news header came up as Love Island star gives birth. And mind you, I don't watch Love Island, and I didn't even remember what it was when I read this. So then I was being guided to different constellations and stars to see where there may be some activity. So between Dorado and Mensa is the Tarantula Nebula, which has been active, and they've been looking into it a lot recently. And it's also vertically in line with Aldebaran, and near M35, which is that solstice point from June to July, but it also on this chart was referencing between Taurus and Gemini. And that point at north, that's at North Orion. And I was guided to go back to 6/15/2015, which was a Monday. And again, this is halfway through June, 6/15, but also, 6 days away from the solstice on the 21st. But going back to 15, which were a place where a lot of people awakened, so like 2012 and 2015 were 2 big years. So this was a Monday, and what came out that day, 6/15/15, was the movie Sky. The big show that year was that day was Love Island. How funny is that, going back to 15? The big song was called See You Again. The book was The Road to Character, and what came up that day was the Syrian Civil War. Okay, so there's that reference to Sirius and the Sirius alignment. And it was also the 800th anniversary of King John's sealing of the Magna Carta. So at 3:30 is the Empress and the Union, or Mother Nature and home. And 6/15 that year is also the holiday of Evelyn Underhill, the Anglican mystic and poet. So what about Hydra on June 15/15? Well, the news on that day was that Hydra 6 destroys a U.S. aircraft and Olympus has fallen, which references the White House. As page 7 tops at 3:33, the Ram Hydra, July 2nd there, crawler, is an articulated work platform, also came up there regarding Hydra. The Owl Nebula also came up, 97, which is an M83, the southern pinwheel came up as places of activity. And again, modernscience.org was that article about the batteries and sulfur. the gamma sulfur. That was modern.science.org. So when the moon is in the 7th house, or when the moon is in July, the master of the hidden house of 3 keys, the gamma ray in the boomerang, or the 777, when the moon is in July, or the Elohim, and Jupiter aligns with Mars on July 31st, after Venus stars this year, since the end of May, come what may, and 528, which is when Jupiter and Mars actually were conjunct. As we get into 777, starring Venus through different points through Christmas, actually, and 3 keys of the alchemist, which is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, which spell out CAP and Cap again, or the crown, where peace will guide the planets, or the P seal will, which is 2 U's and the chakra alignment in the pod, as the house protects you. The 11-11-11 of the leaps of gazelle for the lions, tigers, and bears' paws, oh my. As Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, or the bears, lions, and tigers, gates open together for sports and the Olympiad of Olympiad 33 in Paris, and 3 pairs of stars. 777 to 717 to 7317. Okay, as we go through July. The lineup through 888, which is actually 2024. So again, it's referencing that 11-month time period, or the 1 year, 1 month, 1 day, 1 hour, 1111, from 777 to 888 the next year. Peace or P-pods guide the planets, right? When peace will guide the planets, the peace of the P-pods guide the planets, or the grids, in the changing of the guards for the next 18 years, right? It's the new cycle in Aries. And love will steer the stars. Love, L, human holy place of longing or birthing, will, which is 2 humans chakra system aligning, steer the stars, which is the path of energetic exchange or honoring, but it was coming up as the honoring being copper or bronze, which is 3rd or 4th place, where Pluto is back in Cap, or in the crown, 10-10-2023, right? So that Pluto goes back into Capricorn 10-10-23, and then switches again March 23rd to 6/11, and then January 2024 to September 1st, 24, and then goes permanently into Aquarius on 11-19-24, all the way through 43. So the twin flames are travel guides through 2042 and 43 regarding grid work. While the Elohim sheep lay eggs or light like the gremlins over and over of the ovaries with lots of gas and sulfur release, birthing forth light in each location. The lion scares the gazelle into the leapfrog of the bear's paws, and then into the tiger of the lynx, the 3 steps into the imperial court, which are coming up as the lynx here, and the gamma sulfur, which is rare monoclinic gamma phase sulfur formed in the oil wells of high temperature environments or a lab, used vapor, and remember vapor means Eden, deposition, to lock sulfur inside spaces within carbon nanofiber mesh or grid. But instead of doing what they were looking for, they saw gamma sulfur being created, and the power went off at 413 to 14. Okay, and again, 314 came up as a reference earlier too, and 413 is the same 314 numbers backwards, and it went off at that time to 414, which is the energy of the lambda leap to, where angels fear to tread in that higher love. So again, the LIS of the lithium sulfur batteries, and the bear pushes the lynx or the tiger, which is also has a reference of in his atlas, in Cancer, right, which is where we are now, with 3 recent supernovas in lynx, number 28 of 88 in size, lynx or the tiger, called Lyn, L-Y-N, which I've referenced that a lot recently, right, with Eve as the evening out, and the Lyn of the lightening up and the water falling, like the heartbeat. And it is of 3.14 magnitude. There's another here in Links called, and it's the only one with a formal name of the supernovas, but it was called, it means the thorn. So there's that thorny crown energy. That's 31 Links. And that's 380 light years. And there's that 38 of the Queen of Cups and that Mary Magdalene energy. And there's lots of other energies in Links. But what was also very specific was the supermassive black hole. That's 23, right, the King of Wands in this year, 23 billion times the sun's mass, this black hole. There's large regions of starburst activity. And it's, I don't know what the redshift means, but the redshift was 3.911. So that was interesting too. So that's everything that came up there. And I'm going to let you go. It's 1 hour and 52. So there's that 51 to 52 energies of the King of Swords and Queen of Swords. Rise and be love.